Kilmar Abrego Garcia, Maryland man or MS-13 gang member? Let's take a look and see what we can figure out. All right, so if you've been paying attention to the news lately, I'm sure you've heard about this case. A man by the name of Kilmar Abrego Garcia, a husband and father who was living in Maryland, was arrested and deported to El Salvador. Now, there's a lot of misinformation and disinformation showing up on both sides. Was he legal? Was he not legal? Was he a gang member? Was he not a gang member? So obviously, I'm not going to be able to solve this all by myself, but I'm going to try to present enough facts that everybody is informed. Now, Garcia came to the United States in 2011 at the age of 16. He did come in illegally. Now, the issue is his family was facing problems with gang members back in El Salvador. So his mother sent his older brother first and then him to the United States to try to escape these issues. Now, in 2016, he met his future wife, and in 2019, he was arrested in a Home Depot parking lot. Now, he was one of 4 arrested, and one of the other 3 claimed that he was a gang member. But he offered no proof, and police at the time didn't believe him. Then police handed him over to ICE for deportation proceedings. Now, the government claimed that he was an MS-13 member based off of 2 things. First, he was wearing a Chicago Bulls jacket and hoodie. Now, if that makes you a gang member, about 50% of kids in the 90s are guilty. But the other piece of evidence was a confidential informant that the government had who claimed that he was a member of MS-13 gang out of New York. Now, he had never been to New York, but this was sufficient evidence for a judge to deny his bond claim. Now, I'm going to side with the judges on this one. Here you have an undocumented immigrant with claims that he's tied to a gang. These are the scenarios where we should be better safe than sorry. No matter what anybody's personal political viewpoint is on this, we all agree that violent criminals should be off the street. But the gang member claims were only used to deny bond. There's never been a full adjudication of the issue to determine whether or not he was actually in a gang. He was never arrested in El Salvador, and he was never arrested in the United States prior to that Home Depot parking lot. Now, while he was waiting for his deportation proceedings, he ended up marrying his girlfriend and having a child. He then applied for asylum and withholding of removal. He was denied the asylum claim, but granted the withholding of removal claim. And while this isn't quite as strong as an asylum claim, it definitely gives him legal status in the United States. His argument was that if he was shipped back to El Salvador, his life would be in danger from the gangs that he fled from in the first place. Now, in 2025, he was rounded up with a whole bunch of other people and shipped off to El Salvador. After hearing the case, the Supreme Court declared that the government should facilitate his return. But the government then decided that what the Supreme Court said wasn't actually what the Supreme Court said. They took a 9-0 ruling against them as for them after trying to play around with some of the language. The government's official position is, we sent him to El Salvador, we don't have the right to get him back. And the El Salvadorian president, who was just here, has said he has no way to get him back in. So obviously these two are playing a fucking game with each other, because if they really wanted to get him back, we'd have him back. The Trump administration is putting their foot down here. The question is, are they justified? So let's go through some of the facts. Did he come to this country illegally? Yes, he did. Was he currently here illegally? No, he had legal status. Was he a gang member? But there's not nearly enough evidence to definitively claim one way or the other. There's no actual physical evidence of him being a gang member. There's just a couple of statements from people who said that he was. Now, this is the part of the video where I talk about due process. Because here's the thing, we can argue online, we can argue all over the place whether or not he should be here, he shouldn't be here, he was a gang member, he was not a gang member. But the fact is, none of that matters. He should have his day in court. He is guaranteed due process by the Constitution. And in a court setting, he would have the chance to defend himself, and the government would have a chance to prove themselves. And if it was determined that he should not be here, then he can be deported. But instead, he was shipped off without due process to a prison, an extremely violent prison. So instead of a normal deportation where we say, get the hell out of the country, he is now sitting in one of the world's worst prisons for an undetermined amount of time. And the only crime that he has ever committed in El Salvador or in the United States was a misdemeanor of crossing borders. Now, I don't think we should get everybody back that we had sent to El Salvador, put them out on the street and say, you're good. But I also don't think anybody should be deported without due process. There were some really bad dudes that were shipped off, and those people deserve to be deported and even potentially jailed. But what we're seeing here is the problem where stories are starting to pop up that show that not all of these people were actual criminals. So even if you think that, rapists and murderers deserved everything that they got, you have to admit that a guy like this deserves his day in court to defend himself. The government has to prove their case. You can't just ship people off for no reason whatsoever. Due process is what separates us from a fascist state or a police state. Without due process, whatever the government says about you is true. The Fifth Amendment says that no one should be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law. Now, the 14th Amendment states, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. It does not say any citizen, it says any person. Now, the Supreme Court has held that this protection extends to all natural persons, regardless of race, color, or citizenship. So yes, this has been challenged, and it has been upheld that anybody, even undocumented immigrants, get due process. So bottom line, I'm not here to debate whether or not Kilmar Abrego Garcia is a gang member or deserves to be here. He should have an opportunity to do that for himself in court. Without that, any argument is inconsequential. Bring this man home and give him the due process that the Constitution affords him and that the Supreme Court has upheld that he deserves. Hey, if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And remember, be good, stay humble, speak freely.